Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables. Today I am going to do my favorite witchy reads. So I have read a lot of books that have witches in them, and I think a lot of us, especially near the spooky season, we just kind of gravitate towards any sort of paranormal books like vampires, witches, spooky books. You get the drift. So this is gonna be the first video and a whole slew of ones that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have a vampire ones coming out soon. I'm gonna have a paranormal one coming out soon. I'm gonna have my scariest thrillers I've read. So just embrace and get ready for all of the spooky videos this month. But today we're talking about my favorite witchy books, which is a lot of them. I didn't think I had as much, but I do. A lot of these are not very scary at all. They're just kind of about witches. So there's a lot. Let's just get into it. So the first book that I want to talk about is a very heartwarming book, and that is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Madana. I read this last year, fell in love with it. It's the perfect time to read it. It's cozy, it's sweet. It's like if you want witches, but not scary witches. I just can't get involved with this angle. This book we follow a character named Micah who is a witch, but you have to be very quiet about it. She has like witches that she meets up with every quarter. They just kind of discuss things and then they kind of go their separate ways. You're not supposed to tell anybody you're a witch. Even when growing up, you're not supposed to grow up with other witches in the household. It's all very quiet. So basically Micah has a YouTube channel where she pretends to be a witch. You know what I'm saying? And then she gets a comment from this guy saying he has these nieces that are witches that are all sisters and he really needs someone to help train them. And Micah's like, you know what? I grew up with having nobody, so I would love to go and train these 3 young girls on how to be witches. So she goes to this house. I really loved it. If you're looking for just kind of found family witches, just really atmospheric, but also super heartwarming, this is a great book for you. Moving on to Cackle by Rachel Harrison. Rachel Harrison is a horror author that has, I've read 3 of her books. They all each kind of feature a different kind of paranormal thing. Like her last book, Such Sharp Teeth, is about werewolves. Her other book that just came out, Black Sheep, is kind of about like a religious cult. We got a lot of different, things. This book is about witches. So this book we follow a character named Annie who at the beginning of this book kind of doesn't know what to do with her life. Her boyfriend breaks up with her. She's a teacher. She decides to move to this really small town, and there she meets Sophie, and Sophie is so full of life, so bubbly, but everyone in this small town is scared of her and respect her, and Annie's like, what the heck is going on? You come to learn that Sophie is a witch, and it kind of goes from there. It's not overly creepy. It's designated, I think the genre is horror, but I would say this out of all her books is the least horror for me. It's more about finding a friend, a lifelong friend, learning she's kind of a witch and would do anything for you. There's a lot of spiders in it, so maybe if you're agoraphobic, maybe not read it because Sophie has a very close connection to spiders, but I really enjoyed it. It's a fun one. Again, perfect time to read it for the spooky season. It's another witchy one that's not going to overly scare you at all. Speaking of witches that are not going to scare you, we have the most recent release is The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic. I read this one last month, really enjoyed it. This is about a character named Sadie who comes from a long line of witches. Her grandmother's a witch, her aunts and uncles are witches, her mom's a witch, and everyone in their family kind of has a curse on them. When they turn a certain age, they learn their curse. Sadie's curse is that she's going to have 4 big heartbreaks and then she's going to lose her magic. So she is very closed off. At the beginning of this book, she's already had 2 of her 4 heartbreaks, and then she learns her grandmother is dying. That's not spoiling anything. And so she knows her 3rd heartbreak is coming. So it's all about Sadie really learning how to open up, especially since her 1st heartbreak is coming back into town, Jake, and maybe she's falling in love with again. She has to take kind of the whole matriarch role when her grandmother passes away, and it's very magical. It has a lot of recipes in it where her and her grandmother own like this coffee shop bakery where they use a lot of like cinnamon and lavender that's supposed to give you like strength and fortitude and calm and peace, and so they kind of put it into their magic just like regular like kind of spices and stuff, but it's magnified and it's really heartwarming. It is a sad one, so in case you want like heartwarming to the max, this one may not be for you. It's very sad, I will say, definitely with the saddest witchy book I've read in a while, but overall I did really enjoy it. It's also being pitched as when Practical Magic meets Gilmore Girls. I definitely agree for the Practical Magic front. If you love Practical Magic, I'm pretty sure you would really enjoy this book. Next up, we have The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. This is all about a character named Vivi who 9 years ago got her heart broken by Reese. And she does what any witch does. She gets in a long bubble bath, she has cry sessions, she drinks some wine, and then she decides to put a curse on Reese, even though you're not supposed to do it. So she puts a curse on Reese, nothing ever comes from it, she kind of blows it off. 9 years later, guess who's back in town but Reese, and they live in this place called Graves Glen. And as soon as he steps foot back in town, because he's there, because he's part of the founding family, he's there to like kind of recharge the ley lines, things go wonky the minute he sets it back in town. Like wind-up toys are becoming murderous, cats are starting to talk, and Vivi knows it's because of the curse she put on him 9 years ago. So she has to confront him, tell him, hey, it's like I put a curse on you, and work together. It's a second chance romance with witchy vibes in a witchy town. It's definitely very reminiscent of Stars Hollow, but if there were witches in Stars Hollow, but nobody knew about them kind of thing. I really enjoyed it. It does have a sequel to this book, which I'm actually planning to read this month, called The Kiss Curse. So in case you really enjoy like a good witchy romance, I think of all of these, this is like the most romantic. It's like a very witchy romance, I would say. Check out this series. Next up, I have a couple of YA books that I always recommend, especially for spooky time. And that is The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw, as well as Winterwood. Wicked Deep is definitely my favorite book by Shay Earnshaw. I really enjoy it. It's about this town that's kind of cursed because years ago, like centuries ago, the town drowned these 3 girls that were accused of witches. And so every summer for like a few weeks at a time, they come back, inhabit the body of 3 local girls, and lure boys out into the water and kill them. So, you know, it's not heavy for a YA book at all. But still, man, I love the plot. I love the writing. It was very witchy, spooky, perfect book to read in fall season months. Also, Winterwood. This is also a very witchy one. This is about a character named Nora who lives in the woods like all by herself. She's a witch, and these woods are kind of haunted. Nobody knows about them. And then when she goes out one day, she finds a boy out in the middle of the woods. So she brings him home. Things had happened. And this one was okay. I definitely say Shay Earnshaw writes very atmospheric. Like that's my favorite thing about her book, or her settings and the way she writes just kind of about witches. The plot and the characters aren't the best, but if you're just looking for a good YA witchy time, I would recommend both of these. Next up, one that's not overtly witchy, and that is The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Zordita Cordova. I read this one a couple years ago. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Was not expecting to love it, but I did. So this obviously follows the Montoya family, and they have a matriarch of the family, Orquídea, and she sends a letter out to all of her like family, like her sisters, her sisters, her daughters, her grandkids, saying, hey, I'm gonna die soon, come home to collect your inheritance. And they all go home to this home that Orquídea's really never left, and they see her die, and she like becomes a tree, and then kind of a curse gets put upon these Montoyas, and a couple of them are starting to develop kind of magic powers. And it's definitely a book all about family, about witchiness. I loved it. The writing in this is just hands down beautiful. It's one I don't hear talked about a lot. Why? I have no clue, because it was amazing. The writing was beautiful. I love the plot of it. The characters, definitely very memorable, and one of my favorite witchy books of all time. Like I said, not overtly witchy, but Orquídea has a very interesting past. The fact that she turned into kind of like a tree. We have a character that has like a flower that's growing out of her. So like, obviously, we got some witchy stuff going on, you know? Next up, we have Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. This was released last year. Fell in love with this book. The writing, the atmosphere, just chef's kiss, perfect for fall time. So this book is all about this island, Shorsha. I think that's how you say it. Every time I say Shorsha, I think of like Shorsha Ronan. So I'm like, is that how you say it? But it's a very, very small island where everybody knows everybody. And we follow a character named Emery. And Emery, once upon a time, fell in love with this boy named August, and it was amazing. It was magical. And then like a big kind of thing happened one night where somebody gets murdered. Also a fire happens, and August and his mother flee. And now it's been like 15 years, and August is back because his mother has died, and she wants to be kind of her ashes spread on this island. And so he comes back to everyone's really unhappiness, but Emery is obviously having some mixed up feelings because she still has feelings for August. Emery also also kind of comes from a line of witches. This is very light on the witchy aspect, like very light. I thought it was gonna be more. I wish it was more witchy, but there's hints and stuff in there about it because Emery's mother was kind of a witch, so was her grandmother, and you get like a little taste of it. I wanted more of it, but it's witchy in the fact of it does have that in it, but it also the setting is just on a very mystical and spooky island where the island feels like a character on its own, like the island's kind of like drawing you back in even when you leave, and I really enjoyed it. Love this book. I always will sing its praises for its atmospheric writing and for this setting. Hands down awesome. Then we have a cozy fantasy, In the Company of Witches by Laura Lee Wallace. I read this last year. It's a cozy fantasy and it was okay. I didn't love it, but I think if you're just looking for a cozy witchy book, this would fit the bill for you on that. I forget the character's name, so please forgive me, but we follow a woman and she is a widow and she lives with her aunts, kind of like Practical Magic styles, in like this kind of Airbnb, kind of like this bed and breakfast, if you will. And it's all about her kind of moving on while dealing with a small town and maybe finding love again, also dealing with magic because they are all witches. Everybody on the island knows they're witches. And it's just a cute time. Does it have the most amazing plot? Not really, but goodness me, is it adorable? If you want Stars Hollow vibes with witches in them, I would recommend this book. Then we have Wayward by Amelia Clark, another one that's not overtly in your face witchy, but has some witchy vibes to it. So this book has kind of like 3 stories in one. We follow 3 different time periods, but they all kind of like weave together by the end of it. We have one in 1619, Athla, who's awaiting trial because a man was murdered and they think she's a witch. Then we have 1942, we follow a character named Violet, who's trapped in her family's grand crumbling estate. And then we follow in 2019, Kate, who flees London because she has an abusive relationship. And they all kind of go to this place called Wayward Cottage, and they all kind of learn that they're witches and maybe their ancestors. That's not like spoiling anything. You could probably put it together, but it's just very like mystical and magical in the way they all learn about things, how they're very connected with nature, especially. Like some of these witchy books, they're connected with recipes and food and stuff like that. This one is very connected to nature and animals and trees and things like that. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely a book about perseverance and in spite of odds that are being pulled against you, because we have one in a very abusive relationship. We have one that's being accused that she's a witch, and I really enjoyed it. I don't hear a lot of people talk about those one. It's short, it's easy to read, and would highly recommend it. And the last book is definitely the most spooky of all of the witchy books, and that is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I read this a few years ago. Love the cover. So this one, please forgive me as I've forgotten it, but it's about this island of, it's about this land of Bethel where I'm pretty sure it's like a very strict religious, kind of like a cult, if you will. And we follow a character named Emmanuel, who very existence is blasphemy. Like her mom had her out of wedlock, and then her mom went into the woods where people go crazy when they go into the woods and never came back. So she's kind of being raised by, I think, her grandmother. And it says, but a mishap lures her into the forbidden dark woods surrounding Bethel, where the first prophet once chased and killed four powerful witches. Their spirits are all still lurking there, and they bestow a gift on Emmanuel, the journal of her dead mother, who Emmanuel was shocked to learn once sought sanctuary in the woods. So basically, she finds herself struggling to understand her mother could have consorted with the witches, but when she learns the truth about the church and its history, the truth throughout to Bethel is its own darkness. So it's about kind of Emmanuel learning that maybe her mom was a witch, maybe it's kind of in her blood. Also, she's like in this very, very strict religious community, like, gosh, it's horrible. But man, the woods were creepy. The witches in the woods were creepy. I recommend this a ton if you want a little bit, maybe not of a lighthearted, heartwarming witchy book, but more of a creepy witchy book. This one's got you covered. So there you have all of my witchy book recommendations. I have a lot, but hopefully I gave you enough of a wide variety of like cute witchy ones, romantic ones, spooky ones, kind of atmospheric ones, kind of just all around ones. Of course, I'll be adding on to this list every single year because I read new ones every single year. I would love to know what some of your favorite witchy books are. Please leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.